Hello, Jamie from Inky and Scrappy, sharing with you today some galaxy background creating with some distress mica spray stains and of course some distress black soot stain as well. So I started with on this piece, I started on with the black soot spray, and then I added in some of my mica spray stains on this one, shaking them up fairly well so the mica gets mixed in there. They have the color. Now I did these on Distress Watercolor cardstock, so keep that in mind. I will pull in a Distress mixed media, like the cream stock or ivory stock later on. It's the only one, the white one doesn't work for these anymore, just that Manilla, I guess it's Manilla, right? So the Manilla one works. Otherwise, the watercolor paper works well. The other option would be Bristol Smooth Mixed Media cardstock, or I think there's another, I think scrapbooks.com has a mixed media cardstock that I've heard works well with the spray stains as well. So if you've had troubles getting movement, those are my tips for you on that one. You could try some other watercolor cardstock. You might have good luck. Make sure it's a fairly heavy one because it's going to end up taking a lot of water. So for the first one, I started with that black. I thought it got a little bit too black. I mean, it's a galaxy, so it really doesn't matter, right? I thought it got a little too black. So for the second one, I'm bringing in that black soot spray stain, but I'm actually just spraying it on my mat here and then just taking the paintbrush and kind of coloring in the outsides, and then I'm going to speckle it heavily with just little flicks over the top to kind of get it to move around a little bit. And then I will set these off to the side. Real time, these took me about 14 minutes to do all three panels, just the base layer or the first layer. It requires some dry time. I really love doing backgrounds when we're super busy, field work wise, whatever, because I can come in, quote unquote, come in to eat breakfast. I really didn't eat breakfast. I probably grabbed a snack on my way out the door. I really just worked on backgrounds instead. It's, I love to get some creative time snuck in there, even if my husband might not, know what I'm up to. So the other thing with these is when you shake them, they tend to get stuff in the top of the cap. So I just add a little bit of water, shook out what I could, and went from there. And that one was a hot mess, and I just walked away from it. So once they were all dry, I brought in this new to me bleed proof, I think Dr. PH, I think it's McPhee. I'll write it down below. Carrie Rhodes uses this one, and her and Mary Fungun from Craft Roulette were talking about it when she was on the other week. And I was like, I wonder if that would work, because I've never been able to find a white that works with the speckling over the top. A spoiler alert, it's freaking awesome. It worked great. I really didn't get, because it's an opaque watercolor, and so I did add a little bit of water. It's super thick. I probably should have stirred it with a stick or something, but I just kind of took a little bit off the top, add a little bit of water to it, splattered that, and then of course I brought in that new mica, mica watercolor medium as well from Winsor and Newton, and added a little bit of water to that, and then added some more speckly mica splatter on top of my mica spray stains. They were sparkly. They were pretty. So I'm using my stamp platform here, my Stamping Pro platform here, to stamp 3 of my images out for this one. So the galaxy backgrounds are awesome because you can just let them sit and dry while you're working on some other things. I did create a new color palette for this one using the backgrounds for some color inspiration. I think there's a couple of them there that are fairly similar to ones that I've had in the past, but I wanted, to start from scratch. And so sometimes I find new color combos that way, and so I like doing that. I did zoom this in, and I tried to leave in the coloring of the skin. I did switch up my skin tones here a little bit. I used some buttercup yellow and thin persimmon for my medium skin tone. Of course, for that lighter skin tone, you saw the card that I pulled out earlier. So it's kind of like that Copic E00, and I think it's like E02 maybe. I don't remember. But in the ones were on there. And then for my dark tone, I just brought in that E460 in the Oahu line. And I just do two-tone with double coloring over it after it is dried. So, and then of course I'm going to use that for my hair color as well. I kept these fairly simple. I didn't go over the top with the coloring on them. I wanted to keep it fairly quick and easy. I've been trying to do a little bit more quick and easy coloring and not so over the top coloring. You know, it is what it is. I did color this first one all with Copics, or not Copics, with my Ohuhus, and I was even using the fine tip. And I will just say that the lines on the Inked Girls and this particular one is fairly thin. And some of those little areas were very thin. And so I got it done, but I struggled a little bit sometimes to stay inside that line with my alcohol marker, trying to be very quick with my touches to them, like, you know, not letting the marker sit so it would absorb into the paper and wick out. I usually don't get much wicking at all anyways, but these ones were just such small, tiny areas that I struggled a little bit more with them than I would have liked. So just keep that in mind if you are having a hard time. And it's okay to switch up, you know, what your plan was, because that's kind of what I ended up doing. I did finish the first one here, and then off camera I did the second one, and the second one I was going to do all with gel pens. So I brought in some cool grays for my spacesuit here. Kind of kept this one fairly simple on the coloring, doing the darker tone wherever I wanted the deepest shadows, and then I'm going to come in with that lighter tone and go over the darker tone and just kind of bring it in a little bit. And then of course bringing in, sometimes I bring in the zero marker to kind of push that color back out if I thought it got a little bit too dark, but it'll also lighten it up. So you see that I have that one, and I abandoned ship on the Copic, or on the alcohol marker, the Honolulu's, or the Oahu's. Sorry, I can't talk today. The Oahu markers after a while. So I did bring in the grays. So I started this one with the grays, and I just kept this super simple, and this was probably the easiest one to color. Yeah. So I brought in the grays. I went over it. I wasn't worried about going over anything because I knew I was coming in with metallic gel pens. So can I tell you a secret? When I started making cards, I used to only color with gel pens. That's what I had for my medium, and that's what I would color all of my images with. And I enjoyed it. It took a lot of time because, of course, you're dealing with a very small tip, and sometimes your images would get bigger, but sometimes I would just outline the images like inside the black line and leave them like that. And it was, you know, that was how I started. So don't be afraid to start small with your coloring and work up from there. Or stay with what you know, and, you know, you don't have to go beyond, you know, gel pen coloring. It's all good. And so yeah, I brought it back and I really enjoyed it, and I might be bringing it back again because I was like, gosh, I haven't done this in forever, and it was relaxing to me. I love writing with pens that write well, and so yeah. But there are my 3 Space Cadets, and so I ran them through the Brother Scan and Cut, and then of course I had to, you know, find all my supplies. So these were done over probably a 4 or 5 day period of time. I'm not going to lie. They were not all done at one point in time. And a lot of them got done in the evening after we had done field work for the day. And so it's just kind of how I work in the month of May. This one isn't going live until June. Yeah, that's how I work in the month of May. So I did bring in another roadie set, or ink road set. So I have the Kylie Inked Girl from June, I think it's June 2023, for my Space Girl. And I wanted to use the sentiment on there, but there's also that same sentiment is in one of, I think it's Monday Memes, possibly. I will list the set down below if I, anyways, but if you're interested. So I brought in the other one because it had a moon on it, and I thought it would be kind of cute to add the moon to this one. So I did treat my background here, it is totally dry, with some anti-static powder, and then bringing in that VersaMark ink and then stamping that onto the background here. And then I'm going to add my white embossing powder. I also brought in the little star stamp that comes with Gut Inked Kylie to add some actual stars to the background. I thought it was just a fun added look. And I'm just bringing in white embossing powder. I'm using Brutus Monroe's Alabaster white embossing powder for this one. It has been my favorite white to heat emboss with. At least I've had the best luck with that one. I did pick up some Ranger Ultrafine from our local craft store, and I will see how that one does when I'm done with my Brutus Monroe one. So I'm just adding some more stars all around the background, and yes, lifting it up and looking, you can usually see where your embossed ink is at. And I wasn't too worried about these like not inking all the way because it's a galaxy background, and if they didn't ink all the way, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. So I will heat set that one once again, and then of course bring in my next background. And of course I sped this up quite immensely because it's just me figuring out placement, and then of course stamping with that VersaMark ink, putting the embossing powder on, heat setting, and going from there. And then for my last one, I ended up bringing in a piece of coordinating cardstock because I wanted to pull in, I know that I'm going to do a shaker on one of them, and so I didn't want the sentiment to be lost in the shaker bits. And so I kept that in mind while I was pulling them together. So I kind of ran them all through the die cut machine, took out different sizes of Trinity Stamps Modern Embossed Stack, A2 stack, and then kind of went from there. So once I had everything cut and ready, I was like, okay, I need to actually like finish these up. So the next day, 5 days later, no, I'm not exactly sure when I did all of them. I suppose I could look at recording dates. But so for this one, I'm bringing in just that piece of, I don't know, it's like scrap, whatever the plastic is that like your stamp sets come in or your die sets might come in. That's what I use for my shaker pockets. It's like recycling, so it's all good. So I just cut it a little bit bigger than my actual background panel is. Put that scored style tape all the way around the outside. I usually use scrapbook.com's because it's fairly cheap and reasonable. And then before you seal up that top one, you have to bring in your shaker pieces. So I have this star mix from the Glow in the Star and Moon mix from Trinity Stamps. And then the star confetti mix here, this glitter, is actually, I picked up at Target like in 2020. So yeah, and I spilled it everywhere. I'm not going to lie. I now have little sparkly stars all over my floor, and they might be migrating because, you know, they get caught on my sock, and then, yeah. So I've been vacuuming up glitter stars for the last week. It's wonderful. So I did bring in some paper or this one I think I actually mounted it right onto a purple cardstock base for my card. And then I'm going to bring in my action wobblers here. And yes, these are not the original action wobblers. These are Hobby Lobby action wobblers, and so they're not always the greatest, and they need a little bit more extra love and attention. But they're like $3 for a pack of 10 as opposed to $10 for a pack of 10. So, you know, yeah, sometimes I struggle for the savings in moolah. So I will add on my sentiment here. I did cut that out with one of the Ink Stamps sentiment dies. I think it's a stitch sentiment die from Ink Stamps. It worked well for this one. And then, of course, I'm just going to add in a couple of those glow-in-the-dark stars for the top, on the top. And you know what I forgot to do was take pictures in the dark, because then you can see the glow-in-the-dark stars. Oh well, Jaime feel. It is what it is. So I was trying to pick, you know, some of the ones that would maybe work I wanted a variety, so there's a variety of sizes in there. And then, of course, I wanted to do the little moon on the bottom by the kind of like the other one, but it's a little bit smaller of a moon, I guess. So yeah, I don't think you can actually, there you got to see it a little bit, so they're going to glow in the dark, but they're kind of fun. And then, of course, we're on to the next one. So really the rest of these, we're basically just putting on the action wobbler and being careful with peeling that adhesive off the back of it, because that's usually when they tend to fall apart. It'll break. And then I always add a little bit of liquid adhesive just because, you know, trust issues. I want to make sure it stays and it stays well. So I brought in the black and the purple, and, you know, it ended up going with the pink on this one. I think I ended up grabbing another pink for the other one just because there's so little pink in my actual galaxy on it that I did want to bring in that pink a little bit more. So for this one too, I'm going to add in some of, you know, those stars that might be laying around my desk, trying to clean up the mess that I made. Oh my gosh, this, I think maybe that was one, I don't know. It was a hot mess. I spilled them. It was, yeah, we're not going to talk about it. I think I tried popping open the top to put stuff back in it, and that's when I spilled them everywhere. It was bad. Yeah. Alright, so for the last one here, I'm going to glue on my card front. I did bring in that pink again. I felt that it brought the pink out of the galaxy background just a little tiny bit there. And then, of course, I'm going to add my action wobbler on to my Kylie here. A huge fan of space, both outer and personal. And I decided she was floating upside down. It was kind of a fun little switch to the other two. So they're all just a little bit different, but you know, it's kind of one of those processes when you get started, it goes fairly quickly to do multiples. So, and of course, the shaker, and well, you know, and I had to play with them all, right? So once they're dry, I can definitely make sure those action wobblers are working well. And then I thought I was done. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, wait, hold up, girl. You forgot to glossy accent their face mask. So I brought in some glossy accents. This is like, I think it's the Distress Mosaic glaze, like from the kit, but it's glossy accents. That's what it is. But I've been using it forever. So if you see, so you're like, that doesn't say glossy accents. It is. It's just what they used for, I think it was their paper mosaic kit. So I added glossy accents to each one of their face masks, because obviously they're in space, they're going to have a glass mask over their face, right? Yeah. And then I was finished. I did not take any pictures once they were done, because, yeah, life was moving pretty fast. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Keep getting inky. Bye.